And that's where I get, I understand exactly what you're saying, but I definitely would rather pay that. But what I've found recently I said I'm like taking care of a lot of personal business here, is that the ROI is not what I expected because the systems aren't functional. It's not the quality of like the healthcare, it's the logistical processes are antiquated. And so you run into a lot of, I've already submitted that form. They'll eventually cover it or you'll give up. And so you still run into these like health insurance specific scenarios. But to your earlier point, it is, what I found is that what I tell people is that and I used to tell people here is that it's financially irresponsible of me to stay here and be here as an American if I ever plan to
Financially irresponsible.
if I ever
Good.
if I ever plan to go back and live in the United States, it is financially responsible for me to be here. If I plan to live in Europe forever, then that's fine. But it truly is like you start at ground zero when you go back to the United States. You really have to climb your way back up to the salary levels usually, and your bank account is not nearly as big as it would be if you spent that same amount of time working in the United States.
I have not met a single German expat in the U.S., a single German executive. I travel across the U.S., especially in certain robust economic areas in the south and southeast of the U.S. that have a lot of German companies, Austrian companies, primarily from Atlanta up to the Carolinas, also in Alabama, across Texas. I have not met a single executive of German descent who says, I'm going to go back to Germany and work and retire.
Me
I have
neither.
not. Because they see the broader freedoms they have. They see the less restrictive government. They also see the greater earning potential. They also feel in their wallets and in their bank accounts more take-home pay, less taxes, and the retirement and financial investment opportunities that are available. The ability to grow and be responsible for your own retirement, whereas those investment products in Germany are super restrictive. Like, who's going after a Riester-Rente?
Yeah, that's a
My
bad,
tax
bad
advisor,
joke.
I asked my tax advisor in Germany, where would I invest? Should I open a Lebensversicherung, a life insurance policy? Should I open a Riester-Rente? Should I open a Betriebsrente? And he says, no. Just hold on to that cash.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I put that cash, because I'm a U.S. citizen. I can invest in mutual funds, stock market in the U.S. I take earnings from German wages and invest those where I can. Mm-hmm. But I think it's an underprivilege to German workers and to German society to restrict those investment options, because essentially that could alleviate the social security system in Germany.
But that's part of the capitalism that I'm talking about, where you're preyed upon. It's like it could happen. They could let people do that, but it's this control mechanism to stifle but just to keep the government running.
Don't want
so
people
you're just
to be more independent.
Daddy always said the only conspiracy out there is to separate you from your money.
Hey, that's, yeah. I got a gun though.
Which finally leads to the question, or what I think would be very important to hear from you as US citizens. Would you say the system in Germany is fair? I mean, it's very broad, but it's maybe always also about the freedom to choose. Yeah, and here in Germany, it's not your choice. You have to do that, and you have to be health insured, and you have to, be that little wheel in the big system. So how would you say that?
I'll let you go first, Ed. I would say as long as you know enough about it to work it back as much as it works you, then sure. But you have to learn how to work it back. And so there's going to be a period of time when you're going to get the shit beat out of you by the systems. and it's just going to fail you. But once you learn how to play the game, then I think that it's probably much easier. And people are much more like, that'll work out. Whereas in American, you're like, how am I going to live? How am I going to survive? They're like, it'll come. It'll come.
Okay.
I would say the scales are weighted in favor of government and in favor of corporations in Germany, especially if you're a government official for your whole career, which they call Beamte. You get more retirement, more so than doctors who are saving lives.
That's called paying them off so they don't talk about all the stuff that happens on the inside of the government.
And that's also, some people choose that. They stay in their comfort zone for 30, 40 years. They get their Beamte status. They get a much higher retirement, a higher status within society. And also, the corporations are much more protective, right? Because the state wants to protect those corporations that are creating what?